Welcome friends in Tech Job Hunt, and this is new series I have created, C Sharp and .NET. So here we will learn about the important concepts uh, from the C Sharp and .NET. So the important and most favorable topics which are interview point of view and your application users point of view, we will discuss here all these concepts from the beginning to advance, and this will be going to be an in-depth session. Each concepts we will learn through real-time use, and we will see through the application level that in how we will use in application, how it will behave in application. So all those things we will consider and we will use in this session. So first topic is dependency injection, most important topic in .NET. So anyone who have used .NET Core, then they have idea about the dependency injection, because it is a service from the Microsoft, especially in .NET Core. Dependency injection, DI container. So what is dependency injection? Dependency injection is a kind of design pattern in which we inject any service. So any service we want to use, we inject it, just like uh, the medicine, or you can say any liquid medicine is injected in your body through the needle. Okay, so there is an interface of needle in from by which you are injecting that medicine in your body. So in the same way, dependency injection work. The services are injected through the some kind of middle interface. Okay, so interface play roles in executing those services, calling those services, using those properties and action methods of those particular services through the interface. So dependency injection is a design pattern used to achieve loose coupling, better testability, cleaner and maintainable code. So these are important properties, or you can say important attributes of the dependency injection in a design pattern uh, that are make efficient DI containers. So what is the loose coupling? Loose coupling is something you are not directly creating the instance of any particular service or classes. So that's called the loose coupling. What is the tight coupling? Tight coupling, if you are creating instance of that particular object directly, so this is called tight coupling. So interdependency injection, we do not directly create any instance of any particular service. We inject that service through interfaces. Okay, so that's make a loose coupling. So in the same thing, if any service is a loose coupling, then there is a better testability also, because your service is kind of independently work and also used into another class or any another controller. So the separation of both things, like which is the service and the your business logic classes or any controller in which you are injecting that service, so both are separate. So you are maintaining something services at a different level, and you are writing the business logic or controller at a different level. So there is a separation kind of things are there in the dependency injection. So testability is easier because independently you can test that service, and independently you can test your business because you not directly create the instance. So it's make the better testability, cleaner and maintainable code. Definitely there will be, because you are creating a service as an independent service and using as an interface. So it is easy to create a multiple services and inject multiple services into our business classes, and those services are can be managed at a functionality level, Let's suppose there is a SMS messaging service, there is email messaging service, that there is another kind of messaging service. I am giving you just example. So you can create a different services, and you can inject list of that particular service into our business logic, and by your requirement you can call any particular service and execute the functionality according to your requirement. So that makes the flexibility of injecting services using those services. So it's not particularly depend upon any particular class. You are injecting multiple services, can use your multiple services uh, at your at your necessity, at your logic. So that's make the flexibility. So it's also, you can see as a point of view of a loose coupling. So instead of creating objects manually using new .NET provides a built-in DI container that creates and manages a dependency forest. So this is a basic thing. You are not creating object using new keyword. You are just creating a DI container. DI container is something that you are registering that particular services, and then you are using that service through the interfaces anywhere you want, in any classes, in any properties, also in any particular action method. So you can use according to your necessity. Next thing is DI service lifetime. What is DI service lifetime? Important topic in dependency injection, because when you register any service, you need to define what service lifetime you are going to use. So you have a clear idea, you have to have clear idea that which service lifetime we should use for particular service. So here we will discuss and we will try to understand in which scenario we should use what service lifetime. So what is a service lifetime in .NET? Service lifetime defines how long an object lives in memory and how often a new instance is created. Okay, so you are creating a service, and service is using through the interface. So when you inject interface and call any method or any properties, it creates an object of that particular service. So .NET need to identify that on the server how much time it will live and when it will release the memory. So according to that lifespan, there are three different service lifetime ways. So first is transient, second is scoped, third is singleton. Okay, so in these three ways you can create a dependency injection services. You can register through these three methods. So we will discuss about one by one. What is transient service lifetime, what is scoped service lifetime, what is singleton service lifetime. Transient service lifetime definition: a transient service is created every time it is requested. So what line is saying that when you are injecting any service and you are using any property or any method for that particular service, you will the memory will be created for that particular service, new instance will be created. So every time your service is getting used, it will create a new instance. So when you inject any service, new instance will be created. We will see in the coding, we will see in the Visual Studio clearly that how this functionality works. Then you have a clear understanding that what is the difference between transient, scoped, singleton, how transient is managing its state, and how it is creating objects at a different time. Okay, so this is a registration service.add tangent. This is a structure to register that particular tangent service. Behavior, new instance on every injection, new instance even within the same request. So what it is saying that sorry, every time you are injecting service at any level, you are creating a new object for that particular service. Okay, new instance even within the same request. If same request is using that service injection at a different level, so in same service it will create a different objects. What is the real world use cases? Lightweight service. Definitely it should be lightweight, because if you are creating an object of particular service at multiple level, then service should be lightweight. So where you will use, there should be a lightweight functionalities. You are not going to use it in catching a list of data that is in the huge memory, because what will happen when you use as a transient, you will inject at a different level according to your need. Then it will create a multiple memories, it will create a multiple objects, and you need to have a multiple memory allocation for that particular response or that particular objects. So what will happen, your server memory is getting used or occupied at a huge level. Your performance will be slow, your application will be down. So make sure that transient scoped use where any kind of lightweight operation are you are going to perform. Second is a stateless service. Yes, because every time you are creating objects, so any two injected services are not dependent on each other. So this is a stateless. Every time you are requesting any kind of service, then you are creating a new object. So it is a stateless service. Utility class. Utility class refers that classes which perform some functionalities, basic functionalities performed by some classes that call the utility class. So you use that transient services in that scenario. Pros, no shared states. Definitely there should be not shared states, because the object are not referred at a different level. You are not sharing of service object from one class to another class, or one controller to another controller. So no shared state. Safe for concurrent use. So let's suppose multiple threads are using a particular service, then they have own objects for that particular service. So you do need to maintain or thread safety for this. So it is a safe for concurrent users. Can impact performance if you overused. Definitely, if you are injecting transient services at a different level in multiple places you are using, then it will create a performance overhead. Why? Because transient service create objects getting occupied memory on the server, and then your garbage collector release your memory when the service span is when your service is done, or your operation is done. So what will happen, your garbage collector will need to perform extra work to allocate and release memory at multiple levels. So it can create a performance overhead, and memory is getting occupied so at a different levels, and your application will also going to decreased, performance is also going to decrease. Not suitable for heavy objects. Already told you that if you are storing heavy objects in that particular service performing some heavy operation, then multiple objects or instances will occupied your processor, occupied your memory. So it is not suitable for heavy objects. You can use it in for the lightweight services. Second is a scope service lifetime. So what is the definition? A scope service is created once per HTTP request. Okay. So one HTTP request, one client. Just think about, there is a client and servers. In every web application, in every service, there are two things, client and server. So one client is requesting something from the server. So one HTTP request is sent to the server. So what will happen if any service is a scoped service, then the same object reference will pass on through that request. Okay, so your request is going from the A class to B class to something other class, then the same object reference will be passed. So is the HTTP request basis. Okay, where we use scoped service, database concept context, DB context. So you have heard about the DB context in entity framework. DB context is used to execute SQL operations. So why DB context is used for the scoped services? Why? Because it create a consistency. You think about that, if you have created your DB context as a transient, what will happen? If DB context is using uh, or executing operations at a multiple level, like it is creating a table 1 operation and then it is performing table 2 operation, then what will happen? The table 1 operation create table 1 operation will be performed by different instance and table 2 operation will be performed by different instance. So both instances will create a session through your SQL server. So multiple session will be connected through your SQL server and your SQL server load will be network load getting high. So your data incoming and outgoing from your SQL server to your application server is getting down. So the network between the SQL server and application server will occupied because multiple incoming and outgoing requests are going. And second thing is a pooling. So every time it will open connection and close connection, something kind of connection will do through different instances. So it will create a kind of overhead in your server. So that's why DB context should be declared as a scoped service, because it should be a HTTP request based service. Client 1 is requesting for something, then it should have a DB context shared across the same objects. Okay, so real world use cases: database context, DB context, business logic services, request based services. Request based services you can understand through the keyword request based services. That means you are storing some request information, like its request body, header, user information, the request information. So you can use it there. What is the pros? Balanced memory use. So it will kind of mid-level memory uses. With the HTTP based memory uses, for HTTP based it will create a object. So it is creating HTTP based objects, so that means it's using balanced memory use. How many clients is there, that much object reference will be there. Ideal for web application is work on the client and server basis. So it is ideal that multiple HTTP request refers multiple instances of particular service. So it is ideal for web application. Cons is cannot be used directly into the singleton service. So if any service is a singleton, you cannot use any kind of scoped or transient service. Singleton service only uh, inject singleton services. Third is a singleton service. What is a singleton service? You can think through the keyword. Singleton means single. Single instance will be created throughout the application, and that particular instance or object of that particular service will be shared across the multiple requesters, multiple injections. Same object will be shared. So in real time you can think about that you have a box in a room and there is a 5 to 6 people are there, and each has to need some things or some kind of information from that box. So everyone is trying to acquire that particular box. So what will happen? There is only one box. There is no any other replica of the box. So user 1 and user 2 simultaneously try to get the box. So there will be kind of starvation or deadlock condition because both are simultaneously picking the box and push, trying to pull to themselves. So what will happen that when there is a singleton service, you need to make sure that the thread safety should be there. User 1, when user 1 is accessing your singleton object, then user 2 needs to wait because same object reference is passing. And you need to make sure that any modification is going to be there should be consistent. If user 1 is extracting some information and destroying or modifying something into the box, user 2 will get modified information, not the real exact information that was previously or initially in the box. So in the real world use cases, you can see in the caching services, you can create a singleton class. Like you are storing some information and you want to share across the application, across the requests. User 1 who also wants that particular data, user 2 also want, user 3 also want. So some sharing information should be get through the singleton service. Configuration service, you want to gather or acquire some kind of configuration service. Configuration is done only on the application level. So one time you are registering registering some services. So you can acquire that configuration services through the singleton. Logging services, you want to log some information at application level, then you can use a logging service. Like application level, you are trying to maintain the exception handling and trying to log that exception into our file, then you can log that information using the singleton service. What is the pros? High performance, low memory uses. How the high performance? Because single object is created, single object shared across the application. So same object is performing same operation. There is no any kind of garbage collection are there that multiple objects are created. You need to allocate and release memory. So that's make the performance high. And it is also stored in the heap memory. That means long-lived memory. So it's clean when the application is going to shut down. Otherwise it will reference that particular object in the heap memory. Low memory users, single object is there, definitely there will be the low memory. Shared state issue, I have already told you, multiple users or multiple requesters are trying to acquire single instance. Then there will be the shared state issue. Thread safety required, it's also discussed. Multiple threads are accessing simultaneously that particular reference of singleton service. Then you need to make sure that there should be thread safety. So this is kind of documentation we have read and we have discussed. Now we will move to Visual Studio Code and there we will try to understand all these services lifetime. After the application level use, have you will have a good idea or in-depth idea about that dependency injection. So now we will use Visual Studio Code.